Growing up, I had this friend who was obsessed with Would You Rather. If you don't know, it's a game where you're given two choices and you'd have to decide what you would rather do. And seriously, no matter what was going on, no matter what we were doing, he was always ready to offer a would you rather scenario. Like, would you rather never be able to go out during the day or never be able to go out at night? Or how about this one? Would you rather be 11 feet tall or 9 inches tall? One last one. Would you rather give up AC and heat for the rest of your life or give up the internet for the rest of your life? Which that one is really easy. The best part about this, though, is even though he was the one that always brought it up, he was also the one who struggled to answer them. Like, he would do this thing where he'd run through all of the conditions and caveats, all of the potential scenarios. Like, take the first question I asked you, for example. Would you rather not be able to go out during the day or the night? He'd ask so many probing questions about this. He'd be like, so when you say going out, which was ironic because he's the one that said it, but when you say going out, do you mean like seeing a movie, going to the park, eating at a restaurant, things like that, like doing things? Or can I literally not go outside at all? Because if it's the first one, like if it's just stuff, then I choose the night because I honestly don't care about doing all of that extra stuff. However, if I can't go outside of my house at all, then I have to choose the day because I work the night shift, so I got to be able to get out. And he just keep going on, talking himself in and out of his choice until me, again, who did not bring this up, would have to say, dude, you brought it up, just pick. His inability to make decisions, it wasn't limited to would you rather either. He really labored and he thought about everything he did, and he actually still operates this way today. Can you relate? I mean, maybe whenever you make a decision, whether it's a part of a game or it's more serious, you think about it for a long time before you make the choice. You weigh the pros and the cons, you consider every option, and only after a lot of careful thought, you can feel good about choosing. Of course, that's not everybody. Some of us don't mind making decisions, and we can often do it quickly because we understand that most decisions, let's be honest, don't really have long-term consequences or implications. Like choosing what movie we want to watch or what we want to order at Chick-fil-A is easy because really, there's no wrong choice. I mean, it's all just chicken, right? Movies are only a couple hours long anyway, and hey, I might like it. Now, that's not to say that you don't ever consider choices carefully, but it just comes more naturally to you. Regardless of which side you're on, there is one decision that we all need to think critically about because what we end up deciding will change the course of our lives. In fact, this choice is one of the most important that you'll ever make. More important than what you're going to do when you become an adult, how you plan on spending or saving your money, the career path you choose, and more. And the choice is this: who are my real friends? Discovering who those people are and what makes a friend a true friend is what this series is all about. And for 4 weeks, we're going to discover what a real friend really is. And as we do, we'll not only understand how we can find more real friends, but how we can be the same for others. Now, there are a lot of reasons you might want to be a person's friend. Maybe you think they're cool. Maybe they make you laugh. You have similar interests, or because it's just kind of convenient. Like you happen to have classes together, you live near each other, or have lockers next to each other. But of course, when you think about it, these things alone don't necessarily make someone a good friend, right? I mean, some of those things can actually be pretty superficial reasons to be someone's friend. A person could be cool and funny and have a lot in common with you and always be available to hang out, but still be unkind, either to you or to others, or distract you from what really matters. They might pressure you to be someone or something you're not, or influence you to do negative things you said you would never do. These people might seem like friends on the surface, but they're not being real friends. I grew up with a couple guys in high school who I thought were my best friends. Like I envisioned lifelong friendships with these two. We loved all the same things. We had the same sense of humor. We went on multiple vacations together. Like it was amazing. I thought we were legitimately going to go the distance. That is, until they started getting into things they shouldn't have. Decisions they were going to regret one day, and I knew it. I knew then that I didn't want to be a part of that. So what was I supposed to do? Let me ask you that question. What would you have done, right? What do you do in that scenario? What happens when you realize your friendships are a little more shallow than you thought? What do you do when you start to suspect the people you call your friends aren't exactly the best influences? Maybe when you hear my story, it seems like an easy solution. If my friends were trying to get us and me into bad things, then they weren't really great friends to begin with. I should have just dropped them. I should have done a better job of picking my friends in the first place, right? Yeah, maybe, or maybe not. Like there often is, there's a passage in Scripture that seems to give us some insight on what to do about a friend who's a bad influence or who isn't making great choices. We find it in Psalms. Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers. But they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. They are like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit each season. Their leaves never wither, and they prosper in all they do. The picture painted in this psalm, which is really just like a song or a poem of worship to God, it's beautiful. It says that if we, the tree, like the person reading this, we're like trees. We grow healthy and strong when we follow and stay close to God, who is the source of life. But before that, in this first couple sentences, this psalm seems to say that growth, that beautiful growth, only happens when we refuse to hang out with the wrong people. This psalm tells us not to follow the advice of the wicked, not to stand around with sinners, and to not join in with mockers. And of course, objectively, this is good advice, right? It's not a great idea to surround yourself with people who aren't good influences or put yourself in situations that are going to lead you down destructive paths. But it also leaves us with some questions. Like, who exactly qualifies as wicked or a sinner or a mocker? Does this mean that all of my friends have to basically be perfect? Do we have to drop our friends when they're not? Should we only be friends with people who follow Jesus? Should our friends drop us when we're not perfect? I mean, if you read any part of Jesus' story found in the first 4 books of the New Testament, you find that he had a bit of a reputation for doing exactly this, right? Religious leaders would get so upset because he would often eat with sinners, prostitutes, these people that the psalm mentioned, tax collectors, and more. In fact, Jesus even invited a former tax collector to be one of his 12 disciples, Matthew. So, how could this happen? How could Jesus sit and eat and spend time with the same kinds of people Psalm 1 tells us to avoid? Well, maybe we should read part of Jesus' story. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man named Matthew sitting in his tax collector's booth. "Follow me and be my disciple," Jesus said to him. So Matthew got up and followed him. Later, Matthew invited Jesus and his disciples to his home as dinner guests, along with many tax collectors and other disreputable sinners. But when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with such scum?" Wow. When Jesus heard this, he said, "Healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do." Then he added, "Now go and learn the meaning of this scripture." He's talking to the Pharisees now, the religious leaders. "I want you to show mercy, not offer sacrifices. For I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners." This is a quick aside. This last line is absolute fire. And you could spend a lot of time thinking exactly about what this means. We don't have all that time, so we're going to move on. Jesus knew spending time with Matthew and his friends wasn't going to turn him into a tax collector who stole money from people. Instead of being negatively influenced by the people he was spending time with, Jesus knew he could actually be a positive influence on them and make a difference. When Jesus chose to eat with Matthew's friends, he knew he'd have an opportunity to influence a lot of people at once for the better, like the sinners, like the other people there. The people Jesus ate with got the chance to experience the real friendship, love, and compassion of Jesus Christ himself. And no, these people weren't perfect, but that's exactly why they needed to spend time with him. That was the whole point. Jesus didn't ask them to change who they were or get their lives together before being with them. He made space for them to be real with him. Then Jesus invited them to follow, not the other way around. He also influenced the other disciples who were there. Now, you might not know this, but Jesus' disciples were still pretty new to this whole following Jesus thing. I mean, it seems like Matthew had just been recruited right before this dinner. But by having dinner all together, Jesus was letting his friends, the disciples, know that they were going to do things differently. They weren't just going to hang out with perfect people. They were going to love God by loving everybody. And ultimately, because Jesus is so awesome, he even took time to influence the Pharisees. With this dinner, Jesus challenged the Pharisees, the religious leaders who were watching. He challenged them as well. He asked them, would they continue treating the people they called sinners like outsiders, unworthy of God's love? Or would they start seeing people, including themselves, for who they really were? Imperfect, but loved by God all the same. Jesus wasn't thoughtlessly hanging out with whoever he happened to meet or whoever was easiest to plan those hangouts with. Jesus chose his relationships wisely, and through his example, he invites us to do the same. He sought out specific people, like Matthew. He left himself open to befriending new people, like Matthew's friends and the other friends who were there. He didn't force anyone to be perfect to hang out with him. Instead, he created space for others to be real when they were with him. He didn't let the sinners or the religious leaders around him distract him from his mission. Instead, it was the other way. He influenced everyone around him for the better. And just like Jesus picked his friends from a place of wisdom and love, we can learn to do the same thing. Real friends, they don't have to be perfect, but real friends choose each other wisely. So how can we do this, right? How can we choose our friends more wisely? How can we be positive influences in the world without being negatively influenced by it? What do we do if a friendship no longer seems healthy or wise? And what do we do if we feel like this whole conversation might be a little irrelevant because we don't have very many friends to begin with? Well, I think we need to ask ourselves a few questions, 3 exactly, critical questions designed to be asked regularly to help us choose our friends well and to make sure we're being the best friends we can be. The first question is this: how are my friendships influencing me? Like, really take a look at your friendships and where they're taking you. Which direction are you going? Are they pushing you to grow and to know Jesus more? Or are they pulling you away from Jesus and towards things that are destructive and harmful? Of course, friendship isn't a one-way street. We don't need to only ask this about our friends. We need to ask about ourselves too. How am I influencing my friends? What impact would your friends say you have on them? Are you just going with the flow in your friendships? Or are you looking for ways to influence them for the better as well? How are you sharing the real love of Jesus with the people around you? Lastly, the last question I think is the foundation of all of this. It goes like this: how can I be more wise with my friendships? What new friendships can you make that are just out there waiting? What current friendships do you need to adjust? What harmful friendships do you need to walk away from? And how can you do each of those things while modeling the love of Jesus? Real friendship, it's not about being perfect or surrounding ourselves with perfect people. I mean, that's impossible. But real friendship should keep us moving in the right direction and help others do the same toward Jesus. So if you'll take the time to choose wisely, you'll find the real friendships you make will reshape your life, just like it did Matthew's. You can find hope in the darkness, joy in the sadness, and life in your deepest struggles, because your friends will influence and carry you all the way. Which I guess leads me to a question. Would you rather keep fake, superficial friendships that pull you down and push you in directions you shouldn't go? Or develop real, lifelong friendships that build you up always point you toward God's perfect plan for your life. Choose wisely.